Hello everyone of the Midwest and the US of A. The Great Lakes Railroader here, bringing you all with another great video. While I'm still learning the ropes, this is actually the first commentary video I'm doing. But like all rail fans, train spotting has become a keen interest to me, as well as a hobby. Not only that I'll be posting the raw footage of trains passing by, but I'll also be sharing history about the railroad, as did others. While I've caught a lot of trains over the months, it's going to take a while to post them. But while we wait, I like to take a look back to see what has been caught on camera so far. But before we get into that, I like to point out to the viewers who have seen the videos I've posted so far. I'm no locomotive expert, but whenever I see a locomotive model I've never seen or seen but forgot, I visit the dieselshop.us website. It is one of the websites out there that shows the different models of locomotives that are out on the rails or that have been on the rails. I heard about this website that was referenced in a video from Distant Signal, who did a video on identifying an EMD and GE locomotive. So I like to give a shout out to Distant Signal for making that video. I have been using the Diesel Shop website often, and it has been a one-stop shop for me to look up locomotives from the past to present. Most of the trains I've seen so far have mostly been shots of EMD locomotives. EMD once stood for Electromotive Division, a division of General Motors. Now a subsidiary for Caterpillar, EMD now stands for Electromotive Diesel. The giveaway for an EMD are the vents at the back on the side, like the first one I caught. This SD40-3 is an EMD. So is this GP38. And this SD40-2. You can hardly see it, but if we freeze it, you can see the 6 axles, the 2 dynamic brake exhaust fans, and the engine fans. Also, it doesn't have that SpongeBob square cab look, as everyone refers to it as. We can't forget about these MP15 AC cab switchers on the recently formed Hamilton Northwestern. They're both EMDs, including this Canadian National SD75I, but being pulled in the rear is a Union Pacific GE AC4400 CW. I've also caught some GE locomotives along the way, and I rarely got to see any. GE is short for General Electric, another company that manufactures locomotives. The giveaway for these are the radiator fans that stick out from the top and extend left to right. Now, I'm not 100% sure that they only manufacture these big trains or not, but in any case, I've only caught 5 GEs along the way, like the Union Pacific GE AC4400 CW I mentioned earlier, including 4 CSX GEs I caught. The GEs in this shot were an ES40DC and an ES40AH. The lead train I caught in this shot was also an ES44AH, and the unit behind was another AC4400 CW. There will be more of these in the future, and who knows what unknown train I'll see next. We now return to our topic of this commentary. To the younger viewers who are watching, you might think that our railroads of today are dominated by diesel trains. Well, you might want to think again. Our locomotives of today are actually revolutionary. It was technically steam that once dominated the rails from its very beginnings, dating back to the development of the first steam engine in the near end of the 18th century. They soon were ceased around the mid-20th century as a new era in railroading began. 3 main locomotive works were around back then, but now they're out of business. The first one on the agenda is the American Locomotive Company, or Alco for short, which was located in Schenectady, New York. In 1848, Alco was actually called the Schenectady Locomotive Company until they merged with the Brooks Locomotive Works and the Richard Locomotive Works later on in 1901. Five other smaller companies merged 4 years later in 1905. Alco has placed second with the Baldwin Locomotive Works, which was the biggest locomotive builder of its time. We'll get back to that later on. In 1906, Alco entered the automotive industry, manufacturing cars, but ceased its automotive business in 1913, 7 years later after it began. But during that 7 year period, the population in Schenectady has more than doubled from 31,000 to almost 73,000 in 1910. I remembered a population boom in Los Angeles, California, but that's another story. Alco started investing in diesel-electric technology later on down the line. Partnering with General Electric and Ingersoll Rand, Alco built their first diesel locomotive in either 1924 or 1925. This box cab switcher is an SD-3 diesel locomotive, the first diesel-electric to be built. This locomotive can be seen at the Baltimore and Ohio Railway Museum in Baltimore, Maryland, if you plan on visiting the place. While one division of the company made freight locos, another division of the company made diesel passenger engines. These were specifically made for the New York Central. From its earlier box cabs they made in the 1920s, they eventually grew to bigger, more streamlined diesels in the 1940s. Alco has captured 40% of the diesel train market as a result, knocking the Baldwin Locomotive Works out of first. They grew from box cabs to streamlined cab units, road switchers, and yard switchers. During the 1940s, World War II has begun, and Alco soon started making army tanks, tank destroyers, and ammunition. They still made locomotives during its time, and employment with Alco increased threefold. But unfortunately, they were about to hit hard times later on. Alco soon became unpopular and wasn't anywhere near selling rates for locomotives. As a result, they resorted to manufacturing non-railroad products, such as nuclear plant components and oil drilling equipment. In 1969, the American Locomotive Company filed for bankruptcy and ended its operations. With the exception of one subsidiary that manufactured diesel engines, until they officially closed its doors for good in 1979, 10 years later after they filed for bankruptcy. It's now been 44 years since they've closed their doors, and what's left is a marker in Schenectady County as a reminder where Alco once stood. While we got through the American Locomotive Company commentary, there were still two more locomotive works I have yet to describe, but we'll have to save those for another time. I also want to point out the EMD and GE lesson as well. There is a link in the description to Distant Signal's video about the difference on an EMD and GE, if you want to check it out at the end of this video. Make sure to leave a like and comment and to subscribe on both ends. Who knows if there will be another one of these in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
I knew it! I knew it!